I'm Bill Podorski. I'm the Secretary of the Board of the Los Alamos Mountaineers and have been a member of the Mountaineers for a while, since 1979. So I joined 42 years ago, but I'm kind of a rookie compared to the fellow that I'm here to interview, Dave Brown, who came to Los Alamos in 1967 and I presume joined the club soon thereafter. And we're here because he may be the longest serving member of the Mountaineers at this date. At any rate, we'd like to hear some of his stories. That's what we're here for this afternoon. Okay, well, thank you for talking to us today, Dave. Leading up to, as we're getting ready for this discussion, you mentioned you came to town in 1967. Did you join the Mountaineers right away?
Very, very, very soon.
Okay.
Within a few weeks.
So why did you join? What inspired you to join the Mountaineers?
Well, I was looking for people to learn about the mountains near here, to go climbing with.
Had you been involved in outdoor activities before?
Oh yeah, I was a member of the Appalachian Mountain Club in the East, a long-time outdoor association.
Yeah. Where did you move to Los Alamos from?
New York City.
Well, now that's a change.
Well, it's a little complicated. Actually, my previous job was in Geneva, Switzerland with CERN, and was there for 1 year, got renewed for another year, got renewed for another half a year, and then I thought I had a job in Berkeley, California, which was appealing because I had learned when working in Geneva at CERN that the lab doesn't have to be 7 or 8 hours away from the ski slopes. Could be a lot closer.
Okay.
And so going back to New York meant long drive to northern Vermont for skiing. So I didn't want to do that. I got my old job offered back again, didn't take it. Got another job in New Jersey, didn't take it. Too far. Job in Connecticut, too far. I was unemployed for 5 months or more, looking for a lab that was closer to the ski slopes. Didn't want the long drive.
So did you explore the Swiss mountains?
Yeah, I was there too, and I did what's called the Haute Route. Maybe you know that. You don't know it. It's a traverse of the Alps.
Okay.
From France through Switzerland. It's a hut-to-hut experience in general. They have these high mountain huts located strategically, a day's journey apart, and you don't have to take camping equipment. They serve food, very tasty food. So you pay a fee, and you get a place to sleep, and it's quite nice if you like to ski. You can also do it in the summertime on foot. People do that. The haute route, I'm saying, yeah. But generally, the popular time is the end of May, at the end of past the avalanche period of time when mountains can be dangerous, and days are longer, so it's quite nice.
Okay. When you got to Los Alamos, how did you find out about the Mountaineers?
That's a tough question. I don't remember. I knew I wanted to go into the mountains, and maybe I saw a list of clubs. The lab offered a list of clubs you could join. I think that might have been it. I don't know. Too long ago.
Who are the folks that you met when you joined the club?
Oh, George Bell and Don Liska were leading climbers, mountaineers, lots of mountains and experience. I was relatively new to climbing. They were a little older, but they were very experienced and willing to accept me. And so I guess I met them through the club, or maybe I met them before I joined the club. But I did join within a month of arriving in Los Alamos.
So what sort of activities was the club doing back then in the early days when you joined? A range of technical versus more casual outings.
Yeah, there were some people that just did hikes in the mountains. Some people were more interested in rock climbing, and they pursued those things. There were both. There were people that did both. I think now it's true too, isn't it?
Well, there's less technical stuff.
There is less?
And more outings and
Okay.
walks in the mountains.
I didn't know.
And what sort of things did you do? Well, starting with those days, your early days in the club in the 60s.
I went on club trips. Or maybe not always club trips. Several trips with George Bell and Don Liska. We had a trip to the Canadian Rockies where tried to climb there. We were not successful to reaching the summit, but it was quite a wonderful adventure.
Which summit were you trying for on that?
Oh, I think it's called Chopicalqui. It's next to Huascaran, which is the highest peak in Peru, I believe.
Oh, so that was a Peruvian.
Yeah, it was a Peruvian. Yeah, well, I went with a guy from New York City that I used to rock climb with, and we took 2 weeks extra before the expedition. This is the 1960 North American expedition to Peru. It was led by Henry Kendall, you might know the name. Big mountaineer name. And we went in to attempt to climb Chopicalqui. We got a high camp and forged the route through the snow towards the summit for several days, and then eventually made an attempt, but ran out of energy and daylight and things like that.
Did you say this was 1960 before you came to Los Alamos?
Correct. Yeah.
Was that peak unclimbed at that time? Was it?
No, it had been climbed by a different route.
So you were attempting a new route?
Yeah, but it wasn't that. Well, it was difficult. We didn't make it, so therefore it was difficult. Yeah. Yeah, we had 3 porters and a bunch of animals to carry gear, and it was organized by 2 groups that joined in California to become one group of 3 people, and then me and my climbing partner from New York City latched on to the California group, and we became a group of 5 1960 North American expedition to Peru.
How close did you get?
I got to 20 out of 21,000. So we still had a ways to go.
Yeah, but you gotten most of it.
Well, we didn't start at sea level.
What was the level of technicality of that route?
It was snow and sometimes steep and high altitude.
And you mentioned the Canadian Rockies also.
Oh, yeah.
Was that multiple trips or?
Yeah, many trips to the Canadian Rockies, one of which resulted in an accident. You may have heard I had a fall.
I think you talked about that to the climbing school when I.
That was a long time ago. You remember that?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, I took the climbing school in the 80s sometime.
I think I did. Wow.
But there's
I did.
many of us around who've heard about that accident.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what can you tell us about it?
Well, it was a trip where the children and the women stayed in a chalet up high, maybe 12,000 feet. No, it was 8,000 feet, maybe. And George Bell, Don Lisker, Mike Williams, do you know that name? No, he lives in Pewaukee, near Pewaukee. And myself, I guess. And Don Lisker's wife, Alice Lisker, right. Well, we took a couple days to get to about 10,000 feet, and we had a camp on a patch of dry ground. If you've ever camped in snow, you'll appreciate camping at dry ground.
Absolutely.
You know that. Okay, you've done it. Yeah. So unfortunately, the camp had a wonderful view, but not of the face that we were going to climb. It was about 3 miles from the face. So by camping there, we were not aware of the activity on the mountain. So, avalanche activity.
What time of year was this?
This was August.
Okay, and so it was still active. For
Yeah,
avalanche.
occasionally snow would slide down. And we didn't hear it, or we could see evidence when we got there, but it was not continuous. We thought we had a good chance. Well, we made an attempt the first day, and we got up the very steep slope, maybe about 55-degree angle to a ridge, and the weather turned bad. So we went back down, retraced our steps back to our high camp, and then the next day, well, the weather wasn't so good. The next day, again, and then there was another mountain nearby. We climbed there. After about a week, it was time to leave. And he said, well, we may make one more attempt on Mount Robson, which we did. This time, we got to the top of the ridge and continued on, and eventually we got to the summit. And so on the way back, we always tested for loose snow by trying to make it avalanche, trying to make it, see if it will slide. You got to keep checking to make sure things are safe. So we jumped on the snow and pushed, and okay, looks okay. And we had about a 400-foot hand line from the top of the ridge halfway down the slope. This is the 55-degree slope. And so Alice did not go on the second attempt. So there were just four of us. Don Liska, Mike Williams, and myself. And
you were on the way back to your
yeah,
camp.
on the way back, we tried to make it slide. It wouldn't slide. Okay, we'll go back down the hand line for 400 feet. And we decided to wait for the other two people. I was on Don Liska's rope, and there was George Bell and Mike Williams on the other rope. And here we are, tied into this 400-foot line and waiting for the other two. We thought we'd go. We didn't have a line down the lower 400 or 500 feet. So we decided to wait for them, and we'd all go together. Well, while waiting, there was a snowslide. And it didn't come from above exactly. It came diagonally across the slope. It was very surprising, because that's the way it came. And it swept us off the mountain. The rope, we were tied into the 400-foot. It was also a 400-pound test. It was about 500 feet long. It was 400-pound test line. We were tied into it. But the snow swept us off the mountain, and the line broke, and I went tumbling down about 500 feet over a birch tree at the bottom. And Don Liska was with us. We were rolling down the mountain. Tumbling is a better word. Tumbling, not rolling. And I always remember what I thought about while falling, tumbling down the mountain. You know, sometimes head down, head up. It was more like a rag doll, not just rolling, we were tumbling. And I said to myself, how do you do a self-arrest now? And didn't try hardly. It was tumbling. And then at the bottom of the mountain, we wound up, and I had broken my leg just above the ankle, my right leg. And Don Liska was all right, more or less. And we waited. Eventually, George Bell and Mike Williams came along, and basically George Bell was the leader of the group because he was the most experienced in the mountains, and having climbed in the Himalayas and all that. And he says, well, I'll go out back to camp, and I'll tell Alice what happened, and I'll continue out and try to get rescues started. So,
I think I understood that you were injured by your own crampons too.
yeah, how did you know?
You told the story.
I did, but that was that was 20 years ago.
35.
35 years ago? Oh, could it be that long?
If I took climbing school in the mid-1980s,
Yeah.
it's 2021.
Oh, all right. Okay. Whatever you say. You have a good memory. Wow. It's true. I did puncture my left knee with my crampon. There was an old injury there, but the doctor decided to open it up and see if there was anything to repair. And there wasn't. It just sewed it up again. It's just a puncture wound. Okay. Anyhow, George Bell made it out that afternoon all by himself on a glacier. Not a good idea because of crevasses and things, but there wasn't too much choice. So he ran out to the chalet and got the chalet radio was broken. So they sent a runner, a young woman, teenager maybe, with a handwritten message that George wrote about the accident. And she ran out 13 miles, crossed several rivers that we had to forge across, and eventually got out and got word out with the sheriff, who got the word out to a helicopter over the Pacific Ocean looking for some fishermen who were lost. And they flew all night and got to the site the next morning. And they landed. They didn't land. They hovered. They weren't able to land because they were low on gasoline. It takes more to start up or something, I don't know. So they brought a litter out with one man, and they got me on the litter, and they carried the litter to the landing site away from the mountain where the helicopter went away. And then it started to snow, and the weather turned worse, and we could hear the helicopter periodically hovering around. And eventually, they came at about 8 o'clock, and by 12 o'clock, they were able to hover right next to where I was, and they carried me into the helicopter. Everybody got in the helicopter at that point. Alice had come from her campsite to the injury where I was that night, and she held my hand all night, which was nice. And when the helicopter was not able to take me to Calgary, I think it's called. They didn't have enough gas. So I had to go into a station wagon with the local sheriff. And it was a very bumpy ride, at least I thought it was. My leg was not doing so well. And but it took an hour of bumpy riding to drive back to Calgary, where a doctor was waiting. And I told him to save the leg, and he did. He told me that if I had delayed it for another 2 hours, they would have taken the leg off. It had turned black. The whole leg was black. I had new knee socks that Faye, my wife, had made that had extra tight elastic. They wouldn't go down. They also didn't let any blood in the leg, plus the swelling.
So it sounds like it was something like a whole day between the accident.
26 hours.
So how miserable was that night?
I had 5 aspirins. Didn't work at all.
That's it. No more serious painkillers than that.
Yeah. No, I did not have any. I ate all 5. But we didn't have. That's another thing. On an expedition like that, you should have more serious painkillers, because accidents do happen. Oh.
Yes. Yep. Nothing to be concerned about there. The other 2 guys weren't involved in the avalanche at all?
Well, they came down after we were swept off the mountain. But they made it down okay. And one of them went back to our original camp, and told Alice, and with the other guy, and they carried a tent to where I was. We had an extra tent, and George Bell continued down the mountain to get the word out. That was very important. They arrived the next morning at 8 a.m.
And I understand this did some lasting damage. I heard tell that Faye said that it slowed you down just enough that she could hike with you after that.
Well, say again. Faye said.
I heard that Faye said
Yeah.
that injury slowed you down just enough that she could keep up with you after that.
Faye was a very strong hiker. Yeah. That was the attraction when I met Faye. She was willing and able to go into the mountains. She never climbed before. I taught her to ski as well. She was a pretty good skier.
So that was probably not a particularly favorite outing. And can you think of any outings that are there in your list of all-time favorites?
Oh, I guess I'd have to say the Haute Route, if you know that.
As we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it's from France through along the Alps, all the high peaks in the Alps, and you go from hut to hut, and they have food and shelter, and that's a ski. I did it as a ski traverse, but it can be done on foot. It also can be done, I understand, using a helicopter from Germany, and then it only takes one day.
Okay.
Because the helicopter is waiting for you at the bottom of each slope, and you go up to the next mountain, and you ski down, and the helicopter's waiting, and it's all done in one day.
Talk about cheating.
Well, you skied the Haute Route, or the downhill part of the Haute Route.
Any standout trips in North America that you remember?
There were many. That's all I could say.
I remember a rather more minor mishap when you were on I think it was a llama trip in the Canyon country. You and Faye, maybe 15 years ago or something.
Oh,
you got a less fatal, less dangerous, but more embarrassing injury when you leaped off a little ledge into a cholla bush.
Oh, I don't think I leaped off a ledge, but I was in a cholla bush, and it was memorable for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Faye was very diligent picking them out.
Yes, I had a lot of spikes into my ass.
Yeah. I think the rest of us provided help by rolling on the ground laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it only 15 years ago?
It could have been 20.
Yeah, now you're talking.
Yeah.
Seems long.
I think it was a llama.
It was a llama trip. I think it was. Maybe you were on it.
Well, I organized it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for recalling.
Yeah. It would have been mine somewhere in the Sand Creek country. So if you were to give mountaineers advice as to what they should and shouldn't do, what would you offer them?
I would say a good thing to do is look at a topo map and learn the route. If you're going into unexplored area, and nowadays, if you're doing the 14ers in Colorado, there's almost a highway up to the summit. But if you do a high 13er, you have to find your route, and it's not always obvious. It's quite a challenge. In fact, that was part of mountain climbing that I enjoyed the most, was figuring out the route in the early days of how to go. It was, if it was a 14er, okay. I have done all the 14ers, by the way. All. Faye did about 46, 44 of the 14ers with me.
Most of them.
That's most of them. She did not do some of the more technical ones where you need to use your hands and more like a rock climb than a hike. But she was with me, yeah.
So as the decades rolled on and you got more and more experienced, what did you learn and what did you do or not do when you were a more experienced mountaineer compared to when you were starting?
Well, as I said, make sure you know the route. Figure out, study a topo map and learn what to expect in terms of the route. Also, I learned a very important thing, which I'll tell you about. It's my most exciting trip, despite all the other trips and falls. It was a trip where I was attempting to climb North Maroon Bells. You've probably done it.
I have.
I've not done it. Okay. It's a little more technical.
Yeah, since the Unganada accident, it's been a scary prospect to me.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, it's justifiably so. It's somewhat technical. It's long, maybe hard. Well, what happened was, and I can't remember who I was with actually, except I know it was Los Alamos group.
Okay.
It was Los Alamos people. Maybe I was the leader. Maybe. I think I was. Anyhow, we went up to a high camp, and we had spent the night up there, and got up early the next morning, and we were greeted with about 5 or 6 inches of new snow. This is in August, I think. Well, snow makes a hard climb harder, as you probably know. But we were 13 people. I think it was a Colorado group that I had joined. I don't think there were too many from Los Alamos. I don't remember. Anyhow, the leader, who was from Colorado, said, yeah, let's go. Oh, well, okay. I was on a mission to climb all the 14ers. So there's a certain incentive. We're halfway there. Let's go for it. So we started out, and we got to the snow was an impediment, but we were slow, and we were too many people. We were 13 people. That's too many on a big mountain.
About what year was this?
It's the year of my injury. I don't remember. No, this was not an injury, but it was an exciting time. I think I had an injury already. I think this was early. I don't remember the dates so well. Anyhow, we got up to the top of North Maroon Bells, and the leader proposed, let's traverse over 2 miles along. This is a high traverse to South Maroon Bells, and we'll have 2 14ers in one day. And I had not done. Those were the last 2 of my 14ers. So I was trying to collect climbing all the 14ers. So I said, well, we're here already. Sounds like it might work. And the leader said that we should try, proposed. And all 13 people agreed to go. So we started out on the traverse, and it's very, very slow, very slow. All the new snow and the weather's not good. There's some thunder in the distance. You know, not a good situation. But the 14er is beckoning. So we started out. After about an hour of trying different things, we're not making any good progress. So I was very doubtful that this is going to succeed. This is later in the day now. Thunder is thundering. And I started to talk to another person who I didn't really know. And I said, this is dangerous. I want to go back. And he said, yeah, it is dangerous. We should go back. And he said he'd go back with me. So the leader comes back and trying different directions. And we tell the leader, we're going back. And the leader decides all 13 of us are going back. So we turned it around, we went back. And we had to climb back up over North Maroon Bell, and about 3 or 4 minutes after crossing over the top, going down back to our high camp, there was a lightning strike on the summit. And I had my hand on a rock, well, for balance, and I got a big jolt from that rock. Wow. We were 4 or 5 minutes away from the summit, but the ground current has to go along the surface, whatever, and didn't knock me down, but it was pretty close. It was a pretty hard jolt. And we continued on, and we came to a really difficult spot where on the way up we had roped up earlier. That's maybe 50 feet of roped climbing. And on the way down, the leader decided he didn't want to lead that anymore. It was too difficult for him. So we all looked around. What are you going to do? It's the way down. You got to go down here. You don't know any other way to go. So there was some teenager, maybe 17, 18 years old, and he said, okay, I'll go last. Everybody gets belayed down this steep section where you use your hands, and the little kid, he said he would climb down by himself last, and he did. It took more than an hour to get 13 people down 50 feet, and the weather's getting worse, and there's lightning around and all that. So we were a little worried. We were a lot worried. And at one point, maybe it was at that point actually, while waiting for everybody to come down, there was a lady that got, what do you call it, hypothermia. She started shivering while waiting for everybody. And this guy, gallant man, took off his underwear and he gave it to her to wear. And she took it and helped her keep warm. And eventually, by nightfall, we got to our high camp. There was another guy had stayed behind, a boyfriend of one of the climber ladies, and Faye. Faye did not want to do that climb. And they had left. And we went down and we eventually linked up, to make a long story short. But I'll tell you the basic lesson from that is, if you doubt the safety of the climb, of the route, turn around. If there's lightning, try to get off the ridge. Very, very important. It was rebellious. We were, two of us, the leader said, let's go ahead. We said no. But we stuck to our guns and we turned around. And I think it was a good thing, because the ridge was very long.
If you had been just a few minutes slower, you would have been on the summit.
Don't talk about it. It was very close. We would have been there for the lightning strike.
Okay, well, I appreciate hearing about all these stories over the years, and I'm sure it's not all a tale of woe and disaster. It's the scary bits that stand out in memory, but any just, high points, gorgeous vistas, accomplishment, what of that stands out in your mind?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not a big thing, but my first 14er is memorable, not because it was just Long's Peak in Colorado. Maybe you've done that one, near Estes Park.
I haven't yet.
Okay. It's a pretty big mountain, and the thing that I took away from that, it was a very long day, very long, because we weren't experienced, was the love of climbing mountains. I had never been up a high mountain till that time. That was before Los Alamos. Long before Los Alamos, I was still in New York. And seeing all these varied forms of nature along the way and accomplishing this pretty hard climb moved me to the point where, hey, I like to climb mountains. It was the mover, the one that pushed me in that direction. It was a summer climb, but for me it was important first. Yeah.
Thank you.
Not sure.
And I understand you're still doing what you can when you can. Around town with Alan Pratt.
The mountains are now hills, but I'm still doing them, trying to. Sometimes I have to turn her back, but there's nothing like hiking in nature.
How old are you now?
91 in August.
So it sounds like it's been a good 91 years.
Yeah. I got my money's worth.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's fun.
So pleased to get this in the records.
Oh, I hope it's okay. Thank you for your interest.